Hi guys, welcome to today's video. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you a step-by-step procedure of how to make these keychains from scratch. This method can be applied for the production of different types of keychains. No matter the shape, you just have to know how to do exactly what I'm going to teach you in today's video and you are good to go. So first of all, you're going to start by prepping the space. And by prepping the space, I mean you're going to start by cleaning the molds you are going to use for this order. So initially I selected these jeweled keychain molds as well as the round ones. The customer requested 400 pieces of the keychains, so that's what I was going to do. So first of all, you're going to clean the molds you are working with. You can use wet wipes, or you can wash them, or you can even use a sellotape. Okay. So for the washing, you can use warm water and liquid soap. Okay. And then be careful not to scratch the surface of the molds. So you can either use a towel or even a soft material like that of the wipes whenever you are washing the molds. So you're going to want to get rid of any particles from any previous orders, be it drops of dried resin, be it glitter, what have you. You're just going to keep cleaning each and every single cavity of the molds you'll be working with. One reason why I prefer working with this particular mold is that it has 15 cavities and it makes the job easier. So while I was cleaning the molds, I rushed to check the order the customer placed and realized she asked for heart shapes instead of the round shapes. So I had to get some new heart shaped molds to be able to proceed with this order, and I did the same for the heart shapes. I cleaned the molds, I cleaned the cavities of the molds that I was going to be working with so that I would not get any dirty particles or any little pieces that are unwanted in the customer's piece at the end of the project. So once that was done, I selected the resin and hardener I was going to be working with for this particular project. And then I also got my respirator. You always need to put on a respirator when working with resin. Here I also selected the gloves that I was going to be putting on during the entire process. So the next thing is to measure the resin that you're going to be using for the order. I realized late that the video wasn't recording when I did the first pour, but for the second one I was able to record. So because this is a 2-to-1 resin, or the ratio of the resin is 2-to-1, I'm going to need 2 parts of the resin, which is the A, and only 1 part of the hardener, which is the B. So I had already done the pour for the first part, and this is me doing the second pour. So once that was done, I proceeded to pour the hardener. I poured 1 part of the hardener, which is the B, into the cup I was using to do the measurements. After I had gotten the quantity I needed, I poured it straight into the bigger container I was going to use to do the mixing. You would want to scrape the sides of the cup you use for the measurements anytime you do a pour. So once that's done, you should make sure the cup you are using to cover each bottle corresponds with the type or the liquid. Do not swap the covers because it is going to react, and then at the end of the day you will not be able to open the bottles. So once that was done, I used my wet wipes again to just clean the silicone cup I used for the measurement of the resin. Once you start mixing the resin, it becomes foggy, okay? So that is to show you that the resin and hardener has started to react with each other in the container. So you're going to want to keep mixing till it clears out like water. And then normally I advise that you keep mixing in one single direction just to avoid any bubbles from getting into the project. So if you are really paying attention, you will see that the resin has started to clear out. It begins to look clear like water. But I prefer to still give it an extra mix, okay, just to be on the safer side. So here you can tell that you can easily see the bottom of the popsicle stick, which wasn't the same as before because it was too foggy to see into the container. After the mixing was done, I poured a larger portion of the resin into an extra container. This is going to be for mixing in the white pigment or the white mica powder. And then I poured a lesser quantity into a silicone cup. Always, whenever I'm working on a project, I prefer to leave an extra quantity or a little bit of clear resin on the side just in case of anything. So this here is the white mica powder I'm working with. I prefer to work with mica powder for this project because of the customer's demands. She wanted it to have a pearl effect, and that's what the mica powder is going to be giving you. So when working with mica powder, you're going to want to mix it in one corner of the cup or container. This is because it's a powder, and if you immediately just start to stir the entire piece in it, you end up having lumps which you do not want to see in your project. So you're going to want to mix it in one corner, and when it's well mixed in that corner, you're going to mix the entire thing together. So if you look closely, you will see the pearl effect I'm talking about. So this is the pearl effect I'm talking about. It doesn't look just milky, it looks pearl. You see that? Yes. So next we're going to move on to adding the flakes to the resin. And all the time, whenever I'm working with leaf sheets or flakes, I prefer to dip the tip of the popsicle stick into clear resin just to get it a little bit wet so it's easier to pick the leaf sheet. So see how glossy the leaf sheet is? The trick is once the tip of the popsicle stick is wet with resin, you just tap on it and you roll. And now we are just going to keep mixing it in the resin. So when you start to mix, it begins to tear into the resin and give the kind of effects that we are looking out for. So you just keep mixing until you get the consistency that you want. But for this order, I prefer to use more leaf sheets just to add a little bit more of the gold to it. So I repeated the same process again. I just tried to clean the popsicle stick a little, tapped on the sheets and then rolled, and then I got it into the cup again. So I repeated the same process, I think 2 or 3 times before I was able to proceed with the project. So once that was done, I got some extra silicone caps, a bigger one for the mica and a smaller one for the flakes. The reason is that whenever you are pouring from bigger cups, at times you tend to over pour, okay? So here I use a smaller one for the gold leaf sheets or the gold flakes, and then I use the bigger one for the mica powder, or let me see, the white pigmented resin. When pouring your resin, you just try as much as possible to recreate the pattern you have in mind. So for this pattern I was trying to create for the customer, I needed white on one side and gold on the other side. So that's just what I was going to do. You pour white on one side and you pour the gold on the other side. It's not difficult at all. You don't need to be an expert to be able to do this same technique. This is one of the easiest designs out there you can recreate as a beginner in resin art. So yes, that's all I did, and I repeated the same process for all the heart shapes that I was going to make for the customer. Once I was done with the hearts, I went on to doing the same pattern for the geode shape, since the customer wanted the same colors for all the keychains she was placing an order for. So you're going to realize that this is not difficult at all. It's actually very easy to do, and you can just do this as a hobby and just make something off of it. One thing I always advise my students about is that if you are really interested in learning resin art, you don't just watch the tutorial videos and think you are good to go. You should always be practicing whilst you are learning online. It makes learning easier. And then with that, you'll be able to understand each and everything that you are being taught in the video you are watching. And that way you are able to comment any difficulties you had for the person teaching you to be able to answer them and make the work easier for you as well. After the pouring was done, I left for this project to sit for 24 hours so I could proceed to add in the embellishments or add in the stickers for the customization. So when it comes to customizing keychains or a resin project with names, you don't necessarily always have to use a mini printer. If you do not have a mini printer, there are other methods for adding inscriptions. So here I had designed the inscriptions based on the size of the molds I was going to customize, and then I made sure that I made the larger sizes for the geode keychains, and I also made smaller sizes for the heart shapes as well. Here I was going to peel the backing off this transparent sticker to be able to adhere it to the piece I had made, okay? So because I do not want to have my fingerprints on the sticker, I'm going to use the tweezers to pick the sticker from the backing. So here you can see how clear the sticker is. It's literally see-through. All you're going to do is to adhere it to the surface of the piece you are customizing. And because it's a sticker and it has a sticky side, it's just going to adhere to it easily. So this is how it's going to look. Great. So next we are going to adhere the smaller size to the heart shape as well. So we're going to repeat the same process, picking with the tweezers, and then we are going to customize the heart shape with the sticker we just peeled. So you just be very careful with the placement. Just try as much as possible to place it upright, and then always press down on the sticker to release any bubbles and to let it look natural. So that is it for the customization. I'm going to repeat the same process for all the other keychains as well. So this type of sticker wasn't printed with a mini printer. This type of sticker was printed by a printing press. So some neighborhood printing press shops or printing shops do customization on large format materials, and some do customization on transparent stickers. So with their help, I was able to print these designs at a very low cost, and then from there I'm going to resize them based on the cavities I'm going to place them into. So once that was done, I customized all the molds. I did that one after the other. So this is the first 15 in one mold. When that was done, I placed it aside and went on to customizing the next one. And this is how the hat looks after it has been customized. So once you're done with every single thing, you can just place it aside and move on to the next customization project you have to do. After adding the inscriptions, I rearranged the molds to be able to get enough space for every single piece I was doming. This will make the job easier. Make sure you do not overlap them, and then also always try as much as possible to work on a very leveled surface. So once the arrangement was done, I went on to cleaning the mixing tools, which included the mixing spatula and then the mixing container. The reason why cleaning is very important when working with your resin, especially when you are doming, is that you do not want to have any particles in there when you've mixed your resin and poured onto the project. Next, I moved on to turning the silicone cap I was working with inside out. This process makes it easier for me to clean all the filth or all the little particles that I do not want out of the silicone cap. So with the same wet wipes, I'm just going to aggressively clean the silicone caps. So this way you are able to reach all the corners of the cap and get rid of any unwanted particles. Once that was done, I wiped my hands, which now had some particles on them because of the silicone cap. Now I proceeded to turn the cap around again, and the only reason why this is possible is because this silicone cap is very stretchy, or I should just say silicone is a very stretchy material. So it made it possible for me to turn it inside out, clean the inner part, and turn it around again without ripping it apart. So I always reuse my mixing sticks. It makes it easier for me to not spend too much on resin supplies. So these are the chemicals I'm working with. I'm working with 500 grams of 2:1 epoxy resin. That's going to be enough for the doming. And then I'm always having my hardener available, because why not? Always remember to wear a mask every single time you are coming to mix your resin and your hardener, because it's still going to be a chemical reaction and you do not want to get harmed in the end. So I got my gloves ready as well, since I will need to protect my hands. And now for the mixing, I'm going to be pouring 2 parts of 200 ml of resin, making it 400 ml. and only a single part of hardener, making it 200 ml of hardener. So the O-Celle Crafts crystal clear epoxy resin always comes sealed, and this is very good because transporting or delivering them makes it much easier. So this is me doing the first pour for the 2 parts of epoxy resin I was going to do for the doming. One thing you realize is that the part A is always more viscous than the part B, meaning the part A is thicker than the part B. And this is totally normal. So I poured that into the bigger mixing container, and then I did a very vigorous scrape. And the reason why you have to scrape is to try as much as possible to get the same quantity for the second pour, and also not to waste any of the chemicals you are working with. So after the first pour was poured into the bigger cup, I did the second pour. I made sure I scraped the sides of the cup again. Next, I poured the 1 part of 200 ml of the part B, which is the hardener. Since this is a 2:1 ratio I'm working with. Now I proceeded to pour that 200 ml for the part B into the bigger cup. And here you can even realize how foggy the resin turned immediately the hardener touched the resin in the mixing cup. So this is what we are working with. We are going to just keep mixing it. So now it's so foggy you can barely see the bottom of the silicone spatula we are working with. But the mixing is going to be done till it's clear like water. So now I'm going to proceed to clean the smaller cups I'm going to be using for the distribution. I always prefer using smaller cups because it makes it easier to control the quantity you are pouring. And once you control the quantity, you prevent wastage. So I poured a reasonable quantity from the bigger container into the silicone cup for the doming process to begin. So for the doming, you're going to want to pour slowly to control where the resin is going. So you just pour slowly, but make sure you pour enough resin. The effect we are looking for the doming is that the resin should look round at the top. That is what is going to give you the glossy and smooth effect we are looking for at the end of the project. So you are going to want to pour and make sure it does not overflow, because if it overflows after it has cured, you are going to have to trim the edges, which is not even going to give the best outcome. So I did the doming for all the pieces that had the stickers on them, or all the pieces that had been customized. Another reason why doming is important when working on resin pieces is that it seals the inscriptions inside the piece you are making or inside the keychain. in a sense that you realize we use stickers to customize the keychains, meaning they can be peeled off after some time if they are not domed. But if you dome them and the resin cures or hardens around them, it becomes a part of the keychain, meaning they cannot be peeled after some time. And they also wouldn't fade after some time because it becomes one with the keychains you just made. This is a close-up of how the geode keychains looked when they were domed. You realize how glossy they become immediately the resin is poured on the surface. This is one of the best effects you'll be looking for when working with resin, the glossiness. And as such, you should always make sure you are working with the best brand of resin to avoid bubbles and to always get the glossy effects you'll be looking for. To use this refillable butane lighter, when it's on lock, you cannot push down the button to ignite the flame, but when you push it on the on, you can now ignite the flame and push it back on lock to lock it in place so that you can use it without it going off. So I used the heat from the flame of the lighter to pop all the bubbles that were on the surface of the work we had just done. And then please be careful whenever you are working with the lighter. You can tell how fast I am sweeping the lighter over the surface of the molds. I did this 2 times. What you're going to do is you're not going to keep the lighter at one point, but you're just going to move it fast over the surface because it's just the heat that we are going to need to pop the bubbles from the surface. So once that's done, you're going to leave the work to rest for 24 hours before you will be able to demold them and move on with the project. So after 24 hours, this is what you are going to be getting. Here we have all the pieces cured, and this is how they look at the end of the curing stage. So you can clearly tell how glossy the surface is looking. This is exactly what we are looking for. And because it has cured completely well, now the inscriptions are naturally part of the design. From the sides, you can see the clear resin that was used as the doming or the top coat. And from the front, you can see how perfectly blended every single piece is in this project. So you're going to want to demold all of them, which basically defines the removing of the item from the mold that was used to make it. Demolding is actually very satisfying. So here, some drops that overflowed from the piece can easily be broken if it's not too thick. I find resin art to be very therapeutic, and I would actually recommend it to anyone who wants something to do as a hobby or just anything that anyone would want to use to get something into his or her own pockets. So with the demolding, you are going to want to take your time so as not to rip the molds that you used. And then another reason why resin art is very good is that the molds can be reused for a couple of times, probably even 10 or 15 or even sometimes 20 times before they lose their quality. So anytime you are investing in purchasing a mold, you shouldn't really think too much about it. The only thing you need to consider is that, are you really going to use the mold for many times? If you would, then you are really not wasting your money because you are going to end up getting your money's worth. So once all the heart shapes were demolded, I went on to demolding the geode shapes. Now you are going to also tell that the geode shapes are actually thicker than the heart shapes, okay? So from the side, you see how flat the heart shape is and how thick the geode shape is. Well, that's still not going to be a problem. So you're going to slowly demold all these pieces. Now, because the curing stage is over, this is not going to leave any sticky residue or anything of that sort. If after 24 hours your piece still hasn't hardened, then probably you are working with a resin which has a longer curing time of, let's say, 48 hours. Or maybe if it does have a curing duration of 24 hours, that will probably mean you didn't mix your resin well, or maybe you didn't measure your resin well. You should always be very mindful of the ratio of resin you are working with. If you make a mistake with the measurements, your project is going to be affected at the end of the curing duration. One other mistake others make is that they actually think that putting epoxy resin under the UV lamp is going to make a cure faster, which is absolutely wrong. Epoxy resin just needs the time and then the right weather conditions to give you the effect you'll be needing at the end of the project. So normally I prefer to do my projects overnight. That way I'm able to time myself perfectly well. So you can even tell from the projects, or if you were even working alongside the tutorial, you can tell how easy it was for you to get the same thing that I just did in this video. It's very easy to recreate this project. It's not difficult at all you need are the materials. So now about 90% of the work is done, or maybe I should say 80%. But here you can clearly see how beautiful every single thing is. The pieces turned out so well. These are exactly what the customer is going to love. The next thing is that we are going to trim off all the excess pieces with a deburring tool. The role of this tool is to help you to be able to cut any excess parts you don't want on the keychains you made. So we are going to use the blade, which is sharp enough to cut or to scrape off all those little pieces of resin that overflowed from the mold. But I always advise my students to always try as much as possible not to let the resin overflow, because when it does, you are going to give yourself all the stress of having to retrim them again. And one thing about the trimming is also that it's not going to give it a very smooth finish like you did get for the other sides that didn't overflow. So next we are going to use the electric drill. This is the electric drill. It comes with an on switch. So once you press it on, the drill just keeps turning as the drill showed. So what we are going to do is we are going to drill a hole in the keychain. So based on where you want the keychain to hang from, you're just going to drill a short straight hole inside the keychain. And whenever you are working with the electric drill, I always advise you do not push it. Okay, you just hold it and let's just do its own thing, and it's going to drill the hole perfectly well for you. So once that's done, we're going to put the electric drill aside and proceed with the project. So you are going to need pliers to be able to add the key rings to the pieces you just customized or made with resin. However, if you are not too good with working with pliers, you can work with two. Working with two makes the job very easy for beginners. Now, once you are done with selecting your pliers, you are going to need this little pin here. This little pin here is called the eye screw, okay? So if you look closely, you will see that it has two different parts, okay? So the first part, which is the round part at the top, is called the eye, and the tail is called the screw. So this is what we are going to be putting into the drill, into the hole that we previously drilled. So you can use your hand to just put it in there and just keep turning it around. One thing about working with the eye screw is that I do not recommend you use the plier to put it into the hole. You can actually use any pin to just turn it around and make the job easier on your fingertips. The reason why I do not recommend using the plier on the eye screw is that most eye screws are not made of very thick metals. Now the little ring here is what we call the jump ring. The jump ring is what you are going to need to be able to connect the key ring to the eye screw. So with your two pliers, you are just going to open it up like I just did in the video. Now once it's open up, all you're going to do is that you're going to pick up the piece that already has the eye screw in it and pass the jump ring through the eye of the eye screw that has been attached to the key ring like I just did in the video. So this is how it's going to look like. Next, you're going to pick up the key ring and attach the last ring of the key ring to the jump ring again. And with the help of the two pliers or even a single plier, you are going to tighten the jump rings and close it up together. So I always advise my students to try as much as possible to make sure that the jump rings overlap, and then you are going to press it down and give it this tightened and secured effect. So that is how we attached the key rings to the geode keychain. We are going to apply the same method and attach the eye screw to the heart shape, and then from there we are going to use the jump rings to attach the key rings to the heart shape to complete the project. So that is exactly what I'm doing here in the video. So if you look closely and you pay very keen attention, you're going to realize that resin art is not a difficult craft at all. All you need to do is that you're going to follow these simple rules, which includes how to add accessories, how to measure the resin, how to mix the resin, the type of pigments that you can use, and then just be creative to be able to create amazing pieces from your own imagination. So now this is how the key rings look after the accessories or the key rings have been added. They are so glossy and so pretty. You realize that this was done with just a few steps, and anyone at all can do the same thing we've done here in the video. Thank you so much for watching today's tutorial. I hope this helps you so you're able to recreate amazing pieces like these ones in the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe, share and comment so we can also be able to post more and more tutorials, tips and hacks involving resin art. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.